What's up, guys? That really gross guy here. We are back, and we are going to talk about Saryns' new rework. Saryns' third 3.0, Saryns' second rework at this point. I've actually decided, I recorded this once, and I went back and listened through it, and I've actually decided to re-record this specific episode because for a little bit, I was a little bit too negative. There were some things that, I didn't really like, and I didn't really, elaborate on some of those things and why they are also good things. And I wanted to make sure that I did Saryn some justice because I think Saryn needed a rework. I think I was never a big fan of Saryn. I never found myself ever playing Saryn. I mean, 9 times out of 10, I'd pick Nidus. 99 times out of 100, I would pick Nidus over Saryn. Because I love Nidus, and I felt like Saryn was just a mediocre frame that had a little bit of tankiness, but other than that, that's all she was good for. And I never got into the whole Spore Molt turret thing because I think that's just stupid. Why would you play a game and not play the game? Just spamming the same buttons over and over and over to just mass kill stuff. I get it. You just want to get the loots. You just want to do the level grinding. You just want to do, whatever it is you need to do, and you use Saryn to do it. I get it. We've all, struggled to get something we wanted, and we've run endless missions for loots that we never got, and rare prime parts we never got, and Saryn was your alternative for getting those parts. I get it, but it just really isn't acceptable from a gameplay standpoint to just have a spam, thing to just, I don't know. I mean, I get it. Like I said, I get why you use it. I get why people, just built those builds for Saryn. But I never did it because I never wanted to. I never wanted to not play the game while playing the game. Does that make sense? I couldn't find another build that suited her. I mean, maybe there was one out there. Maybe I just overlooked it, but at the time, everybody that was playing Saryn, mostly, maybe not everybody, but was just doing the spam builds. And I was out there going, man, I would love to play Saryn if I just had, if Miasma was a little bit better and it could do a thing, and maybe synergize with something else, and I could really run like a really cool, fun, toxic build. But I never found it. And for that reason, Saryn for a long time was my least played Warframe ever, and that's starting to change. It has not officially come to the point where I am enthralled with the way Saryn is. However, I think we're headed in a good direction, and I'll give you some positives and some negatives about her build in its current state. But at this point in time, I think she still needs help. I think she's going to need a 3.1, maybe even a 4.0. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think the changes are good. I just don't think they're the right changes, or the numbers need to be tweaked or something. I wish there was a little bit more synergy with Saryn because I'm a little bit confused, and this is kind of my big issue with Saryn right now. Is I'm a little bit confused as to why Spores is the focus of the synergy, because it's a one ability. It's the cheapest ability she can cast, and it should technically be one of her weakest abilities. Maybe not her worst ability, because there are plenty of other frames out there that, their ones or their two abilities are either really pretty good or garbage, and then the other ones just far outweigh it. For instance, some people, let's say Nyx, some people are way more enthralled with their mind control over her second ability, her psychic bolts, and that makes a lot of sense. I understand that. So just because it costs less to cast doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be worse, so I just am a little bit confused that an ability that really is either not meant to be, you know, an ultimate, not really meant to be all that fantastic, is kind of the focus as to the synergy that is made with Saryn. For instance, you cast spores on the enemies and you can use Toxic Lash to go through and kill some enemies, do extra damage, and spread those spores out. And while I think that's good, I feel like it's kind of a synergy that is just in poor taste. I feel like I would love to see some synergy with like Miasma, or I would love to see some synergies that really made you like I don't know, made Saryn a contender, made someone to be reckoned with. And she is and she isn't. For certain instances, I feel like she's a very poor frame, but in other instances, I feel like she actually is a pretty stellar frame because of her rework and the way Spores works now. For instance, you can go into the Simulacrum, and you can use her spores, and you can spread those spores, you know, depending on how you deem fit, with Toxic Lash or maybe with your weapon, whatever. You can spread those spores out like crazy, and the Simulacrum is made fairly simple with Saryn. There's footage that you guys will see playing in the background. I was in a defense. Spores are pretty solid on defense because the enemies are always coming to the middle. They're always getting close enough together that her spores can spread really good, and it devastates enemies. And I think that's great. But she absolutely suffers very early on in the game. If you're a newer player, if you don't have all the mods to make Saryn's power strength, you know, she's not necessarily, you don't necessarily need a ton of power strength. Really, a lot of people are building range builds, so you can spread spores like crazy. Duration isn't as important as it used to be. You can use duration for Toxic Lash, but a lot of people are just recasting it. They're getting, you know, a good amount of power, or not duration, strength. They're getting like 50% strength if they can. They're getting over 150% strength. They're getting like 200% range. Duration, they might be increasing, like I said. Efficiency, maybe they increase. Maybe they actually use Blind Rage to kick that strength up and drop that efficiency down, so that spores, as long as you keep spores up, because it's such a cheap ability, it can be really, really good. But early on in the game, spores, enemies are killed way too quickly. From enemy levels 1 to like 60, 70 or so, enemies are very capable of being killed like that. They're very very, very prone to, you know, abilities like Rhino Stomp, which will just devastate them, or Molecular, you know, Molecular Prime, Ember's World on Fire, and it's just devastating these enemies, where Spores doesn't really take effect early game. Now, like I said, that's the total opposite case when you get into enemies over level 100. It's actually fantastic for enemies over 100, which is confusing as to how this power can be so good with such little energy cost, but at the same time be so poor early on in the game, and be so for new players that need it, for new players that don't have prime flow, so they can, you know, run all these abilities back to back to back, and they don't have all these good mods, or the, you know, and they're building their first Saryn, and they're going through, and Spores is practically useless because it's just gonna be gone. It's gonna be gone like that, gone like that, gone like that. And Molt really doesn't have enough, you know, power or usability, utility to really, not crowd control, but create some distance or some utility to Saryn to make her good. Toxic Lash can only be so good because if that newer player will have to get up close and personal with some enemies, which might be a little difficult. Miasma, while it's great, it's also gonna, you know, cost these new players to to use 100 energy base, you know, and if they don't have a prime flow, or they don't have a maxed out flow, or they don't have efficiency mods, or they don't have the right builds, and she's gonna suffer. And I feel like, for whatever reason, she suffers early game, which is really strange. It's usually the opposite. She suffers so much early game, but can really strive late game. But there's no balance. There's some obvious problems why people might get Saryn for the first time and go, she's not for me. And that sucks, because I was there. I was there saying, yeah, I just can't. I do not like Saryn. Maybe, you know, I was like, there must be some frames that just I will never learn to enjoy. And Saryn, I had pretty much given up on completely. And this rework has given me a little bit of hope for maybe getting some love with Saryn, getting some love and enjoyment out of her. But at the moment, yeah, I'm using her. I'm using her because, like I said, she's good in the simulacrum. She's good in all that stuff. But as a player that likes to, for instance, every time I forma everything on a frame, and then I go back and I struggle with that frame all over again. And I recently just put a forma in my Saryns so that I could learn these abilities all over again. That's usually what I do when a rework comes out, is I make that frame weak by putting a forma in them and making it so they don't have mod capacity and all that stuff, and then going through and fighting enemies that, you know, all over again, challenging myself again. And she struggles for whatever reason. And when I say for whatever reason, obviously I already elaborated on that. The fact that Spores just doesn't stick around early game. Molt just only can do so much. Toxic Lash makes you have to get close and personal, and Miasma just is going to drain that energy. So, I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think. Do you guys like her new rework? Do you think that she needs some more help? Are you mad that they changed Saryn? I would love some constructive criticism. What do you think about her build? How are you building your Saryn? I just would love to know. I would love to know, because number one, I wanna, you know, like I said, I wanna get better with Saryn. I wanna get my builds appropriate so I can enjoy her a little bit more. And if there's anything you think that we can do to make her better, within reason, of course, you know, or you have some synergies you think you could come up with that you think would be really great for her, I'd love to hear them. Kind of my thoughts is, because Spore can be really good, if we can make Spore actually viable early game, but keep it as strong as it is in late game, I could definitely see it maybe being a synergy type deal, where maybe Spores only spreads, or it spreads further if you have Toxic Lash enabled, or maybe Spores will auto-spread when you cast Miasma, or something like that. Maybe something along those lines. Maybe even combining two of powers. So maybe Toxic Lash, its initial swipe of your weapon leaves a spore, and then every following toxic or melee hit or whatever spreads those spores, something like that. You know, and then maybe we can get a new ability out of her. Because if you will put Spores and Toxic Lash together, or, you know, Toxic Lash and Molt together, or something, so that there's something there, maybe we could get a brand new ability out of Saryn, and maybe that could be something that's really good synergy-wise. Maybe that could be something that makes her more tanky. Maybe that could be something really good for her early game, so now we have a new one ability, or maybe, you know, like I said, we move some of those abilities around. I'm curious. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy this, and I hope to see you guys again in another episode. Until next time, hello!